Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samhita Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyadi Deshtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dear devotees, today's verse is not sentimental. It's not poetic, just for poetry's sake. And it may not be exactly comforting, but it is protective. This verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, 3:25, 26 actually, is a gatekeeping verse. It quietly but firmly tells us who will advance in devotional life and who, despite decades of external practice, will eventually stall. This verse doesn't speak about ecstasy, it speaks about eligibility. It doesn't describe prema, it describes the architecture of faith that makes prema possible. And it does not address beginners alone. In fact, it can become more dangerous the longer we practice if we do it wrong. Because long-time devotees are not lost usually due to ignorance, but they're lost due to compromised Sraddha. We lose long-time devotees due to undisciplined speech and tolerated vikarma. Vikarma meaning very heavy materialistic activities, selfish activities. And also, we lose long-time practitioners due to a subtle disrespect.
Praise God.
Bless you. Subtle disrespect for the Bhagavat framework itself. So this verse tells us that you can't ritualize your way past lack of discipline. You can't mechanically practice your way past compromised faith. And you cannot preach superficially your way past uncontrolled mind, speech, and action. So today we will do the hard work of examining this verse not as a theory, but as a mirror. So we'll read this verse. Shraddham Bhagavate Shastre Nindamanyatra Chapihi Manovak Karmadandam Cha Satyam Shamadamavapi. One should have firm faith that he will achieve all success in life by following those scriptures that describe the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. At the same time, one should avoid blaspheming other scriptures. One should rigidly control his mind, speech, and bodily activities. Is manovak karma, dandamcha. Always speak the truth and bring the mind and senses under full control. Purport by the servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The definition of Sraddha or faith is given as follows in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shraddha shabde vishwasa ko hai, shuddhra nischay, Krishna bhakti kaile sarva karma krita hai. By rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. This confident, firm faith, favorable to the discharge of devotional service, is called Shraddha. Thus, a devotee should be confident that by carrying out the injunctions of Bhagavad Shastra or Vedic literature that directly, rather than indirectly, describes devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will easily achieve all knowledge and the perfection of life. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Mano Vak Kaya Dandam, or strict control of the mind, speech, and bodily activities means Manasa Vachika Kayika Vikarma Rahityam. That is, one should rigidly abandon all sinful activities within his mind, speech, and body. As Srila Prabhupada has repeatedly pointed out, sense control does not mean stopping sensory activities, thus becoming like a dead body, but rather engaging one's mental, vocal, and bodily activities in the service of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami has stated, Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikhilasya pavasthasu jivan mukta sauchyate. A person acting in Krishna consciousness in the service of Krishna with his body, mind, intelligence, and words is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Thus, one can achieve Vikarma Rahityam, or freedom from unauthorized sinful activities, by engaging one's senses, mind, intelligence, and speech 24 hours daily in the service of Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that only those pious living entities who are Vikarma Rahita, completely free from sinful life, can achieve freedom from the illusory duality of material nature. The Lord says, Yeshan tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridavrita. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. In his purport to this verse, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada has stated, those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously and have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, gradually, they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees who can deliver one from delusion. Srila Madhvacharya has quoted the following statement from the Brahmanda Purana. One should have complete faith in transcendental literature such as Srimad Bhagavatam and other literature that directly glorifies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should also have faith in Vaishnava Tantras, the original Vedas, and Mahabharata, which includes Bhagavad Gita and which is considered the fifth Vedas. The Vedic knowledge originally emanated from the breathing of Vishnu, and Vedic literature has been compiled in literary form by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vishnu. Therefore, Lord Vishnu should be understood to be the personal speaker of all this Vedic literature. There are other Vedic literatures called Kala Vidya, which give instructions in material arts and sciences. Since all such Vedic arts and sciences are ultimately intended to be used to render devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Keshava, saintly persons in the renounced order of life should never blaspheme such apparently mundane literatures, because such literatures are indirectly connected with the Supreme Lord. One may go to hell for blaspheming these secondary literatures. Sraddha indicates a faithful mentality, which can be analyzed in two sections. The first type of faith is a firm conviction that all the statements of the multifarious Vedic literatures are true. In other words, the understanding that Vedic knowledge in general is infallible is called Sraddha or faith. A second type of faith is a belief that one must personally carry out a particular injunction of Vedic literature in order to achieve his goal in life. A devotee of the Supreme Lord should thus apply the first type of faith to the various Kala Vidyas or Vedic material arts and sciences. But he should not accept such scriptures as pointing out his personal goal in life. Nor should he carry out any Vedic injunction that is contradictory to the injunctions of Vaishnava scriptures, such as the Pancharatra. Thus, one should faithfully accept all Vedic literatures as directly or indirectly describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and should not blaspheme any portion of it. Even for Lord Brahma, as well as for other creatures, down to the insignificant, unmoving species such as trees and stones, blasphemy of any Vedic literature causes one to merge into the darkness of ignorance. Thus the Suras, the demigods, great sages, and devotees of the Lord should understand that the Pancharatric literatures, as well as the four Vedas, the original Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, other Puranas, Mahabharata, are Vedic literatures that establish the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the unique transcendental position of the Lord's devotees according to their status of spiritual advancement. Any other vision of Vedic literatures is to be considered an illusion. In all authorized religious scriptures, the ultimate goal is to understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of everything and everyone, and that the Lord's devotees are not different from Him, although such devotees are to be understood in terms of their level of spiritual advancement. Lord Krishna has stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedesha sarvair ahameva vedyo. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Similarly, the Lord states, Yasmat sharamati ham akshara dabichottama adosmi loke vedecha pratita purushottama. Because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as a Supreme Person. One who performs worship of Lord Govinda but fails to worship his devotees should be understood to be not a devotee of the Lord but simply a victim of false pride. For one who has accepted shelter at the lotus feet of a pure devotee of Krishna, it is very easy to execute worship of the Lord Himself. For such a surrendered soul, there is no need of artificial penances and austerities. In this regard, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has quoted the following from Narad Pancharatra. If one is worshipping Lord Hari, what is the use of performing extraneous penances? And if one is not worshipping Lord Hari, no such penances will save one. If one can understand that Lord Hari is all-pervading within and without, what is the need of performing penances? And if one is not able to understand that Hari is all-pervading, all his penances are useless anyway. A Vaishnava is always absorbed in executing his devotional service to Krishna. If a devotee becomes falsely proud of executing severe penances and austerities and meditates on accepting and rejecting material objects instead of thinking of his service to Krishna, his so-called austerities become an impediment to devotional service. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, a Mahabhagavat, a pure devotee of the Lord, is one who sees that both the material and spiritual worlds are non-different from Lord Krishna, being expansions of his potency, but also sees that Vrajendra Nandan Krishna keeps himself eternally distinct by his unique quality of all attractiveness. Thus, a pure devotee of the Lord is aniketanan, without a fixed residence, meaning that he accepts neither the gross nor subtle body as his eternal residence. Since one's so-called home and family are expansions of his body, such material creations are also not to be considered one's actual residence. Hare Krishna. So the purport is quite long, so we'll just get right to it. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Anjana Shalakaya Chakshurmantamina Tasmai Shri Gurena. I offer my obeisances to the Lord's feet of my spiritual master, who has opened my darkened eyes and filled my heart with transcendental knowledge. I further offer my obeisances to all of you, assembled Vaishnavas, and seek your kind blessings and permission that we may read Srimad Bhagavatam with you. So, Srila Prabhupada has defined this word Sraddha many places, and he quotes this line from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he defines it with surgical clarity. It says, Krishna bhakti kaile sarva karma krita hoy. In simple words, if I serve Krishna, everything else is accomplished. Sarva karma krita hoy. This is not false optimism. This is not blind belief. This is a core existential conviction. Sraddha here means I don't need a backup philosophy in case this one turns out to be wrong. I don't need to hedge my bets or hedge my life with parallel systems to cover my bases. I do not need to secretly believe that bhakti is just one of many paths. No. It means if I serve Krishna, if I do bhakti, everything else gets taken care of. Everything. So Prabhupada often explained that if we think of something other than Krishna, or other than Krishna will save us, Krishna will allow us to take shelter of that thought. He'll let us, okay, if you want to take shelter somewhere else, knock yourself out. That is terrifying. That we can think anything other than Krishna can give us shelter. Because Krishna responds according to our faith, not according to our claims. Ye yathamam prapadyante. A devotee may externally chant, preach, lead, initiate even, manage, and yet internally believe that for my emotional fulfillment, bhakti is not enough. For my intellectual clarity, bhakti is not enough. For my long-term security, bhakti is not enough. This is a fragmented, fractured Shraddha. A fractured Shraddha cannot sustain a lifetime of surrender. This verse says something radical. It says, do not blaspheme other scriptures. Of course, it's talking about the secondary Vedic scriptures and all that. Now, why? Why does it say don't blaspheme other scriptures? Because blasphemy is not about the other scripture, really. It's about the heart of the blasphemer. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that any literature connected directly or indirectly to the Supreme Lord carries sanctity. To ridicule or dismiss or mock other traditions that are seeking God. What does that do? It cultivates arrogance. It cultivates sectarian pride and leads to insecurity, a kind of spiritual insecurity. Srila Prabhupada never built ISKCON by insulting others. He established supremacy without hostility. He was uncompromising in Siddhanta, but he was clean in his heart. A devotee who is secure in Bhagavata conclusions does not need to tear others down. Blasphemy erodes humility. Humility erodes our ability to hear. And without hearing, our bhakti becomes a performance. And when I say hearing, I'm talking about absorbing in our heart, accepting, really nodding when we get the point. And if you don't have humility, that absorption will not happen. If you take some vitamins or supplements, a big factor is our absorbability, our body's ability to absorb the nutrient. If we don't have humility, we'll not be able to absorb the point. So today's verse focuses on these three things. Mano, vak, karma. That's the core of this verse. The control of the mind, what we constantly think. Vak, what we tend to talk about. And action, what we do, karma, what we tend to do readily. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur defines this as Manasa Vachika Kayika Vikarma Rahityam. This is from the purport. The complete abandonment of sin at the level of thought, word, and deed. Now this is where even long-term practitioners can often stumble. Not gross sin, that they left a long time ago, but constant entertainment of resentment of the principle itself, or a casual kind of speech that injures, hurtful speech, and we do it all the time or casually. Or mental justification of subtle sense gratification. Not gross sense gratification, but mental justification. This verse is about discipline. Discipline is not repression. Discipline is direction. Rupa Goswami mentions in this purport we hear, Ihayasya kare haridasya, that if you engage your body, mind, and speech in Krishna's service, you get liberated, even in this life. It's called Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta means you're walking around on these legs, but you're liberated. You're not in this body, really. This is the positive definition of control. Not stopping your life, but re-owning your life for Krishna exclusively. Then he talks about being truthful in your speech. What is truthful? What is truth? Truthfulness is not mere factual accuracy. Truthfulness is an alignment between your inner life and your external life, your behavior. If you're fully aligned, when you say something, you do that. You mean it. And you live it internally and externally. That is truthfulness. If we as devotees speak bhakti, but internally we are negotiating constantly with Maya, we live in friction. So these words Shama and Dama in that verse, what do they mean? It means that the mind is not secretly indulging what the body is avoiding. Yes, we made the promise we won't do gross sin, but your mind is also not absorbing in that. And the senses are not holding the intelligence hostage, that the intelligence is incapable of thinking of higher thoughts. And of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also in the purport mentions, you can't develop these qualities without taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, Vaishnava. Why? Because self-assessment in this very nuanced spiritual life, self-assessment is unreliable. We need a living guide who can help us. Our guru diagnoses our blind spots. The spiritual master protects us from philosophical drift. The spiritual master anchors our Sraddha, this core faith, during our internal storms. And the verse, it says, Tasmat gurum prapadyeta jigyasu shreya uttamam. Prabhupada quoted this so many times. It's very core. He was quoting it left and right, one of the top quoted lines. Why? Because without this guru sharanagati, our discipline, which is an asset, our discipline turns into ego. And with guru sharanagati, our discipline turns into love. So, my dear devotees, this verse is not asking us to become harsh. It's asking us to become whole. Whole in faith, whole in speech, whole in thought, and whole in action. This Shraddha, this strong faith, how it's defined here, it's a very thorough definition that nothing else is needed. Everything else is covered if I perform Krishna consciousness properly. This Shraddha protects us when our emotions fail us. Our discipline protects us when our enthusiasm may fade. And humility protects us when success comes, because success is both an asset and a liability. Our humility is an insurance policy against fall down when success comes. Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't promise an easy path, but it promises a true one. If we hold tightly to this Bhagavata Shastra, if we speak carefully, really carefully, I mean, we have to evaluate how we're speaking, what we're speaking. Look back. We want to transform our speech every day. If we speak carefully, if we think honestly without self-deceit, it's a challenge. These are all internal battles we're fighting. But we really re-challenge ourselves. Am I being intellectually honest with this particular line of thought? If we speak carefully, we think honestly, and we act cleanly, and remain sheltered at the lotus feet of Guru and the Vaishnavas, then even in this world, even with our imperfections, even amidst our struggles, we can live as Jivan Mukta. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira. We live as Jivan Mukta. We live as liberated souls. And one day, having been trained in our faith and discipline, we can be assured that we'll be fit to receive the gift, that gift which cannot be earned. It can only be given to us. That is pure love for Krishna. And that's what this verse is inviting us to do. It's inviting us to do the really hard work of looking at ourselves and looking at the mirror, not with blurred vision or intentionally squinting our eyes to avoid the parts that need work, but to really look at ourselves clearly and evaluate, how am I speaking? What kind of trains of thought am I entertaining? And how am I acting? Am I really sheltered in the right place, trying to understand Krishna, trying to serve the devotees, trying to serve the Supreme Lord? So we need training. We need to accept that training with humility, and then eventually we can be assured that the desired success will be gained, and that we can chant freely this divine mantra that's given to us: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you all very much for your kind attention and your valuable time. And we have a few minutes now if you have any comments or questions or reflections. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Madana-gopāla Prabhu, thank you for your valuable class. What's good about your classes is that you can start applying them from the first line. They're very helpful. That's the word, they're helpful. Thank you, Madana-gopāla Prabhu, for helping us.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question, Madana-gopāla Prabhu. When you announced the title of this class, why long-time devotees, why we lose them, I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm not necessarily a long-time devotee, but I've been around for some time. And I have all those symptoms. I'm frivolous in my discipline. I entertain all kinds of thoughts. My Sraddha is fragmented, like you described. And then I was freaking out. And then, but then when you offered guidance, the roadmap, how to get out of that situation, I became very consoled. And I'm going to wear this class around my neck. I'll re-listen it. It's one of those classes that I need to re-listen. It's helpful, hope-giving, it's clear, and it's very urgent. Thank you, Madana-gopāla Prabhu. So where does a devotee like me start with all this? Because, like I said, all the symptoms are there for me. How do I not get discouraged and move on my path? And not
unshred your Sraddha.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Thank you. There's a book called Un-F Your Health by a devotee. So I need to unshred my Sraddha. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, where do we start? This is hard work. To look at ourselves is difficult, especially if we have to change something. Change is very difficult internally, because change tends to be uncomfortable.
What?
Yes, it's true. Change tends to be uncomfortable. Sometimes we get a burst of enthusiasm and we start some change. But the harder part is to be consistent in that change. One example, if you go to any gym today, it'll be packed because people have made their New Year's resolution. So the first week it'll be packed with the enthusiastic, So one guy, he's trying to lose some weight, obviously, and so there's a little track you run around. So he runs around this little track. It takes like 10 seconds to run around, a small track. And then he goes to the weighing machine to see if he lost any weight, I'm like, oh man. So yes, it requires a little bit of long-term transformative actions. But the hard part is to really look at yourself and not get defensive. Say I have a bad habit of not speaking nicely or be harsh in my speech. If my superiors have kindly pointed that out, that certain things, it'd be good to be more humble. It behooves me to really reflect rather than be defensive. Now sometimes they may be wrong. Sometimes not everybody who corrects us is right. That's another thing to keep in mind. We shouldn't be like, because some people also take advantage of your good nature and then they'll find faults that are not even there. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. That can happen too. So if somebody gives you some feedback like that, we have to evaluate both, they could be wrong, they could be right, maybe they could be ill-motivated, maybe they're trying to hurt me. So then you need a second opinion or a third. If someone says, they're mostly wrong, but this one part they said is correct. And then you're like, okay, well, now I know I need to work on something at least. So we have to find what we need to work on. But the good thing is we have the nice framework of the Bhagavatam. It lists out the components, your vak, your words, your trains of thought, mano, your karma, what I did, how I tend to do things. These are areas we can take apart and look at them closely. And we can follow exemplary devotees, which is why association is so key. We use this term association so much, it almost becomes like over becomes hackneyed. Yeah, association, this is answer to everything. But we have to approach association the right way and with the right mood and constantly reinvent our approach to association. So we're a little bit more humble than before, a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more open to change. It's possible to change. We see it's possible to change. It's also possible to change dramatically. There's a joke. How many devotees does it take to change a light bulb? Have you heard that one? It only takes one, but the light bulb has to want to change, you see. So we have to want to change. Yes. Sorry, I'll see myself out. Yes, Sadhvi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for today. How to say? You talk about association is very important, and I have also heard it many times in many different lectures. Also, I have heard that don't associate with non-devotee because the karma of them will also affect you. Is it the same with the devotee also? Do I have to, or do the karma of devotees also affect me? Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes. So we have to understand. Thank you very much. It's a good question. This association is a good question because it's very subtle. What does it mean that the karma affects us? Whether it's non-devotees or devotees, what does that mean? That the karma affects us, right? So karma, when they said that karma affects us, it's not that if they've done some sin, we get piece of that sinful reaction. What it means is their repeated karma makes their personality so contagious that we will develop a tendency to become sinful. Say we're talking about materialistic people, right? Non-devotees. We'll develop a tendency to be like them because their karma has a momentum. And if we resonate with them, we gain some of that same directionality and momentum. We change our lives to, if they're moving a certain way at a certain speed and we're moving a different one, association with them will change our direction closely to where they're running and our speed will catch up with them. You see, that's what it means, their karma. It generates momentum and direction. You see, it's not that their reactions will be shared by us. No, we will do karma like them. That's how the karma, have a tendency to do that. So Shastra repeatedly teaches that this Sangha association is the decisive force because their consciousness, nature of consciousness that is contagious, right? And the association works at three levels. One is a thought, what we hear and we normalize. We think this is normal behavior. Normalization is a big part of association. We think this is normal. When we see every devotee is just chanting aimlessly and mindlessly, we think that is normal chanting. And we develop that bad habit. Now you're talking about devotee association. You see, even advanced devotees, they're constantly, yapping and take half a mantra and they're talking and scratching. That's fine. It's okay to do that, but we know that's not the best. But sometimes we think that is the top kind of chanting because we see these devotees do it. So we normalize what we see. Then the second level is desire. We start desiring what begins to feel in our mind reasonable. And now it's considered attractive because that association affected us. And then what happens are mati. Mati means the direction of our consciousness. So our direction is where our life quietly starts moving or changing in direction. You see, so those three things, our thought, our desire, and our direction. That's what association does with us. Whether it's associating with non-devotees or devotees. That's why non-devotee association is warned against heavily. Not because people are bad, but because they're not bad people. There's no real bad people, really. It's just that their goals, their fears, and their hopes are centered somewhere else. And that's what rubs off on us. That orientation seeps into our being. You see, so that's something to keep in mind.
Thank you very much. I have a follow-up question, but I will do it afterwards.
Sure. Okay. Yes, Venu Madhuri Mataji. I think you still have another minute, so we can look.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I had a question. You were talking about truthfulness, not being mere factual accuracy, but alignment between your internal and external life. And you mentioned sort of a lack of friction in that regard as being a positive sign that you're doing that. But can you maybe help us pinpoint some subtle ways where that misalignment is happening that would impact our spiritual progress?
That's a deep question. So, what are some subtle ways in which we can be misaligned?
Yeah.
This is very common. In fact, it's very rare to find someone who's fully aligned. Let's just put it that way. Very rare. And I'll tell you why. Especially in ISKCON or any, Vaishnava movement where we do emphasize studying, we become experts at the subtle nuances of the verses, and we memorize entire sections, and we can really be good at arguing, this is the best way to act, this is perfect, and then a lot of the times when we get so good at it, and this is very important for us to do that, but we have to be good at it. We need to understand these nuances. I'm not saying don't do it. A lot of the times we think we're already there because now we've memorized a verse. I understand it, so it means I'm already doing it, you see. And so we can end up fooling ourselves that because I'm preaching at this ideal behavior, I am doing ideal behavior. And then I fail to see that when I am speaking in real life, that it's not reflective of proper Vaishnava behavior. But I have blinders on that part. Or I tend to justify. I understand this. I preach it. So don't criticize me because I'm showing lewd gestures in anger. That's just the way I am. Then we don't want to change that part. We think we're okay, we're already there. And that's where the misalignment starts happening. There's a really funny picture I saw some time ago where there's this Buddhist monk and he's just walking out and then he's making a rude gesture to somebody, and then there's like a caption at the bottom is like, this is what happens when you haven't done your meditation this morning, He'll get really angry and he's showing his hands a certain way. So he's all like Buddhist monk. So this, you can see there's a misalignment with what we preach, what we teach, what we learn, what we study, what we memorize, what we do in our Bhakti Shastra exams. We're really good at it. We score full 100%. But the nature of self-deceit is so subtle that we fool ourselves in thinking we're already there, which is why this verse is important. We have to really evaluate ourselves and always look for cues and clues, especially feedback from devotees who are well-wishers, which is why association is important. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. We take it because it nourishes us and it points the mirror to us. It's hard, especially, I think our curtain should be opening any second now. Yes, the conchal is coming. Let's take darshan first. Hare Krishna. Someone can kindly unmute the Bhakti Center camera so we can hear the sound.
Meru, can you take the camera? Can you hear us?
If you can unmute the camera.
There we go.
Go.
Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. Madana-gopāla Prabhu, back to you.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Yes, this is question, Madhuri Mataji's question was, I think, a very good one. I think maybe we should spend a minute or two on it, because it is something that we should think about deeply. The idea of what you mentioned, conceptual bhakti, without integrated bhakti. It's not integrated in our lives. You know, it's what you talk about, authentic alignment. And we want to approach it in a diagnostic way rather than condemning way. It's not condemnation. The goal is to be aligned, not self-criticism. So what is the core problem? Is that this misalignment happens when our identity, in theory, moves faster than our transformation. And that's very common, very often. Our inner transformation is lagging behind. You know, we begin to know the truth before we have become the truth, in a sense, right? We mistake correct understanding for correct living. What are some of the symptoms? I know what the right answer is becomes more important than, am I living it? That becomes more important. Quoting Shastra to explain away or justify our negative patterns. Or feeling spiritually safe that I'm there because I can articulate the philosophy. You know. So what does that do? The subtle danger there is that knowledge is very important. We have to know. Krishna says nothing more important than transcendental knowledge. There's nothing more sublime. That knowledge soothes the conscience, but it may, if misapplied, reduce our sense of urgency, which is needed to make progress in one lifetime. We want to make high voltage progress. Prabhupada has given a high voltage system. It's not possible to make the kind of progress in that with a conditioned life that we're looking for unless we follow the high voltage system that Prabhupada has given. So then how can we resolve, how can we correct it? What is our corrective action? We can ask ourselves regularly, because we are attending these classes or we're reading regularly, hearing other classes, we can ask, if this verse was true in my life, what would look different in this week? Like really, how would it reflect in this week? And really think about it. See, so that's the point we want to sometimes we can say, I'm surrendered. It is Krishna's will. I'm detached. These are all good things. These are reflections of understanding. But if internally we're resentful, or we attach to control, or if internally we're always so much fearful about the outcome, or we're playing avoidance games, then our quotes of I'm surrendered, is Krishna's will, whatever he wants, it's not fully aligned with our inner feeling if we're still feeling that resentment. And I'm not saying this is wrong. This is pretty much most of us. We are used to saying this because there's a sense of fake it till we make it. Nothing wrong with that. I keep saying it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not always an imposter syndrome. It's that I'm trying to practice it. It's not bad to practice. We should practice it. But we should then look internally and see if we are harboring still resentment, or have we reduced the percentage of our fear. That's what we need to evaluate. Is my anxiety gone down the same kind of situation? You see, we don't use words as shields to shield our negativity. It's called spiritual. We call it spiritual bypassing. You're bypassing your own self. Bypassing means using the theory to cover over the real work that needs to be done. You see, so we don't want to lose contact with our own heart. We have to be in touch with our feelings. We lose contact with our heart while sounding correct. So what can we do? We can name our inner states without editing them by offering them to Krishna. Krishna, I know I'm supposed to be surrendered to you, but I'm really fearful about my financial future. I really am. Please help me understand this. I know I'm a devotee. I've been practicing this many years. Obviously not there yet. Please, you help. We have to talk with Krishna a lot. This is called prayer. It's one of the 9 processes. Vandanam, it's prayer. We have to talk with Krishna. We have to open up to him. And we have to ask Krishna, please teach me to not edit myself when I'm talking to you. There's different ways. So this is how we can gradually bring our alignment, inner alignment with the theory, with our inner lives. The theory and the practice, the conceptual bhakti and the integrated bhakti. And scripture, of course, is a framework. So of course, a lot of time we ask, what is allowed? What is allowed? Is this allowed? Is that allowed? Instead of saying what is honest. If we're justifying our sharp speech, or justifying our neglect of important things, if we're justifying our insensitivity using philosophy, that's a symptom. And that's where we lose our human warmth. That's why we're putting so much effort on the structure of devotee care. And even devotee care, we try to align it with external frameworks, but that this is going to be the root of it. If we care for ourselves like this, can we care for others when they're going through something? This is a very deep subject, but I'm just giving you some general ideas. Is that okay? Thank you. Devki Priti Mataji very kindly quoted back what I said, feedback is a breakfast of champions. We have to be careful with this, by the way. We don't want to be serving this breakfast to our spiritual master every morning. Gurudev, Guru Maharaj, I'll give you some feedback. It's not our position to do that. Then we're going to hell. We have to be careful with those kind of things, or those who are senior to us. Yes, Gail Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just one question and one comment. Just now, you mentioned in this context to your answer the word resentment. Did that refer to resentment of the injunctions of Shastra, or what did it refer to?
Yes, resentment of the principle, that you feel that the principle itself is wrongly placed. It shouldn't even be there. We become resentful of the principle itself. Resentment, yeah, we want to be careful with being, we have to evaluate, what am I resentful about? If we are disappointed in our performance, say, or in our ability to control ourselves, that's okay, that's fine. But if you're resentful of the instruction in the scripture, that this should not even be there, I should edit this out. I mean, it doesn't belong here. Or it's completely unfair, it's unreachable, nobody can do it. If I can't do it, nobody can do it. In fact, this principle itself is the number one cause of wars in the world. People come up with stuff like that. Yeah.
So for such people, we cannot even say that they have faith in Shastra, or their faith is compromised, at least in Shastra.
Yeah, in a sense, our faith is weak when we're resentful of the principle, because we think I know better. I know better than the design that the Lord has put in place.
Yeah,
if we're feeling
no faith, not even weak faith?
Yeah, no, or it's weak faith because you may be okay with the other 10 things, but this particular one thing really bothers you. The proper
but
way
if you're cherry picking like that, to me, if you have faith in Shastra, you take it all, or otherwise you're making yourself the authority.
That's right.
Placing the faith in yourself.
That's right. It's all or nothing. It's the kind of half-hand logic. I'm going to cut off the chicken. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that means your faith it's very weak. Faith is a spectrum. You have a little bit of faith, and you have a little more. It's not always an on-off switch. But if you cut off the head of the chicken, it's almost as bad as an on-off switch. So that's also true. So the faith but the thing is, sometimes we all feel that resentment. We may feel some resentment. We have to evaluate why, and we have to go to our seniors or someone we trust, a senior devotee, and say, I'm feeling this way. I want to be honest. I want to be honest with you. I'm feeling this way. Can you help me process this? Not that this is all nonsense. I'm out of here, or this is ridiculous. I'll continue to be a devotee, but this part I'm not going to do because I think it's just wrong on principle. We should be allowed to do 3 out of 4 regular principles. All 4 is just too much. Choose any 3. It should be that way, in my opinion. And not my opinion. I'm a psychologist. I know how this thing works. This scripture is wrong. So there are people who say this, by the way. They're really into it. So, and they're convinced about it. Yes.
Yeah, just one comment I wanted to make when you were responding to Sadhvi Mataji. And you were talking about how our association can lead to our justification of, bad behavior. It reminded me of a statement. I don't remember which acharya it was, but they were saying that it's worse to associate with those who are like women hunters, who are pursuers of, let's say, illicit sex, than it is to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because, when you do it yourself, by yourself, it's like, there's a chance that you will have some remorse, some guilt feeling, But when you associate with those who are doing it, then there creeps in the opportunity for normalization, like I think.
Exactly. No, because you've joined. Yeah, you've joined their sampradaya, and when you join the sampradaya, right, then you've kind of subscribed to the whole structure around it, not just a one-time slip and fall, but rather that you're really into it. You want to know more, how to be better at it, or whatever, So, yeah.
Okay, Prabhu,
thank you. Thank you, Gail Mataji. Hare Krishna. I have Mathura Nath Prabhu. Go ahead, Mathura Nath Prabhu.
You go. I think Bhima's hand was up.
Where's Bhima Prabhu? His hand keeps going up and down.
Oh, okay. He's not. His hand isn't up now.
No, his hand is up. Bhima Prabhu, why don't you go ahead, because your hand kept going in and out.
He was up first.
Yes. Go ahead, Bhima Prabhu.
Go ahead, Maturanath.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
That hand for Bhima Prabhu, he's giving us blessings. This is his blessings to all of us.
No, those are high fives. I'm like agreeing. I'm like, can I get a witness? Boom. Everything you say, boom.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Two things. One, okay. First is we were talking about intelligence. If we're not able to, you were talking about sometimes we're grasping intellectually more than we're actually realizing. What if we're finding that intellectually I can't absorb as much as I want? How to go about this? Like, I want to absorb more. I want to be able to hold on to this, and so I can contemplate, and I can repeat it. I can share it with others. How do we increase? Because Krishna, he's our intelligence, right? How do we increase that?
Yeah. I've heard this before, and many devotees quietly suffer this. A limited intellectual absorption is not a spiritual handicap. Confusing it for a spiritual handicap is a handicap. See, Bhakti was never meant to be defined by our cognitive horsepower. See, so first of all, let's reframe the issue, okay? I think sometimes we are approaching it the wrong way. Usually, our experience is not that I cannot absorb. It could be one of these. It could be mental fatigue in general, overstimulation with other stuff. We have some anxiety about our intellectual performance. We constantly comparing ourselves with sharper or faster learners. The young people coming like this, they're spewing out verses, and they just joined 2 weeks ago and they already memorized the whole Gita. And, we're comparing ourselves with people like that because everybody has different paces. And also, we want to force our learning beyond our current capacity of digestion. Another problem is we may confuse absorption to be a function of intelligence or IQ. Someone can be super intelligent and not be able to absorb things, But when they're evaluating something, they have so much depth and so much nuance, Just because they've not memorized so many verses and absorbed so much context doesn't necessarily mean they're not intelligent. Absorption is a function of how much we can have inner quiet, relevance, some more discipline, mental fatigue. We don't need to be worried too much because, see, in our Krishna conscious framework, especially in ISKCON, there's so much hearing and there's so much theory. We don't need to be worried that I'm missing out. Every devotee, even just the pot washer who's been washing pots for the last 2 years, that's all they do, but they regularly attend classes, is far more educated than even many PhDs who have PhDs in philosophy. And that devotee can defeat that PhDs in debate because they are following Prabhupada's framework. They don't even realize how much they've absorbed. So we don't even worry too much about some of these scores. Now there's two kinds of knowing, and we often confuse them. One is the conceptual grasp, which is remembering verses, following through with arguments, reproducing the philosophy. That's a conceptual grasp. And then the other one is assimilation. The assimilation meaning truths that shape our choices, ideas that save us from temptations, our realizations that have improved that have influenced our tone, our approach to life, increased our patience, increased our humility. People's behaviors have become so much better. They may not be able to know so many verses, but you can see they've become more saintly. So what does Bhakti prioritize? Bhakti prioritized assimilation, not so much the remembrance of verses. The priority is assimilation. That's what Madhuri is asking, the alignment. You assimilate one or two things, you're so far ahead than the person who's memorized all of them and hasn't assimilated anything, or absorbed them. So a person who deeply lives one truth has absorbed more than someone who can quote 10. That's something to keep in mind. It's a very simple thing. But we do get confused because we see such a variety of people who know so much and who speak so much. We don't want to, also another thing is, we don't want to force intellectual absorption, because that can backfire. If you push yourself to understand more when your mind is really resisting, the Shastra is feeling so heavy, you feel more guilty. Your bhakti becomes, just a scorecard of, how many verses and stuff. This can produce a kind of spiritual indigestion, not realization. Yes, Prabhupada emphasized hearing with sincerity. Hear with sincerity. Hear every day. Hear a lot. And absorb what you can, And pray for more absorption, but in the absorption in a way that's healthy, that you can apply, and that increases your sincerity, increases your sharanagati, decreases your self-deception or pretension. See? And some practical things, if you really want to learn more, shrink the unit of learning. Instead of trying to learn a whole chapter or too many verses, take one line, not even a whole verse. Learn one line that Prabhupada quotes a lot. The one line, 4 words or 2 words or whatever. And just see how different ways Prabhupada's quoted it. And then you try to quote it yourself. Before you know it, you'll be, a champion. So there's different ways to approach it, that if you really want to do it, we should do it. We should do it. But we have to approach it in the sense that you're not beating yourself up and paralyzing yourself over it. Those are some angles I can offer, Madhurnath Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. One other thing, if there's some time, you said how Krishna's reciprocating with our faith and not our plans. I really appreciate that. And I'm also, do you agree that Krishna's not so much reciprocating with what our external activities are or doings? He's also reciprocating with more of our internal, such as our faith, but our humility, our gratitude. Because a lot of time we're thinking, Krishna, the more I do, he's going to reciprocate with that externally. But the internal barometer of how I'm relating, my humility, my appreciation, these beginning stages of having feelings and raga.
Yes. The external things are not that important, but they are important because they reflect our internal understanding. For example, it's not the quantity, of course. It's not that if you do more. When you say more, what do you mean? When I say more, we mean more better, as we say in more better. Means you bring the humility in what you're doing. You bring the deep reflection and realization in the way you're doing things. You're doing the same thing. You're kneading the same dough for the puris or the bread that you're going to make. You're doing the same thing, but now you're doing it with more affection and love and humility and with more connection with Krishna. That bread will be a little bit better. It'll turn out better. So we still have to do stuff, but we want to add more of the consciousness into that. And so that's the whole thing about aligning our external. And if we have the energy and intelligence and enthusiasm to do more in terms of quantity also, we should crank that up more too. Sometimes you want to push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Nothing wrong with that. But we have to make sure we don't go beyond our breaking point. Because our growth happens beyond our comfort zone and before our breaking point. So we want to always be in the growth zone, where you're always a little bit more, somewhat uncomfortable, but not completely breaking. Yeah. So if you approach that while infusing it with the proper mood of humility, trying to increase in that area as well, then we will have consistent growth in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Bhima Prabhu, please provide us with some of your blessings and some of your wisdom. Your hand is up.
Yeah, Bhima Prabhu, we need your humility. We need to see how it's done. everything we talked about in class. Please.
Now see the high horsepower bhakti that Bhima Prabhu does.
Yeah. Bhima Kavita.
Prabhu, I had a hold on, I'm getting echoes here. Hold on. Turn it off.
Sorry.
Hold on, I gotta step out into the winter. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hold on.
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Prabhu, we have obviously ashrams and just a question. You know, the crow who is amongst swans. I guess I don't know what I was I was getting a picture when you were talking about association, how important it is, and especially association with those who are like Paramahamsas, because they give the faith and everything. But isn't a crow, no matter how much the crow is going to hang out with the swans? And he might look at himself and say, I'm a bird too, but ultimately he's a crow. And he tends to find himself in the pilgrimage of crows. But he's hanging out with the swan. So does he have to take like birth again to become a swan? If we're talking about being able to assimilate things, or does Krishna change our constitutional, the color of our feathers in this lifetime?
Yes. So, yes, the analogy is an interesting one. Let's look at the crow and swan analogy. Crow refers to someone whose consciousness is trained or conditioned to relish noise, argument, gossip, ego, sense gratification, controversy, mental stimulation, overstimulation. That's crow. The swan or the hansa is conditioned or trained to relish essence, silence, purity, discernment, and remembrance of the Lord. Now, these analogies, this is not a moral category. It's a conditioned category, conditioning. This is how they're conditioned to think. A crow is not sinful, and a swan is not superior by birth. They simply have different tastes. So can a crow directly become a swan? Not instantly, because the condition runs deep. And this is why many people get discouraged or they become dishonest. Association doesn't magically override instantly decades or lifetimes of conditioning. But the key thing is this. This is something that we really understand about association. This is very key. Association doesn't transform your identity at first. It doesn't start turning your feathers from crow color to swan color. What it does, it transforms your taste. Taste. Hey, being sweet in word, being honest, being peaceful, that's not bad. That's pretty nice. So now as a crow, even though I'm used to making noise and being, harsh and nasty, but I start changing my taste. And when my taste transforms, that's the beginning of our identity transforming over time. So what does association actually do? Association does not erase our habits overnight. Very rare. Very atypical. Association does not remove my mental restlessness immediately because I'm just so used to that. Association does not make me suddenly deep and calm and detached. No. Association does not bypass my psychological and emotional conditioning. There's Sky and Sage. Hey, Sky and Sage, Haribo. But what does association do? Association does introduce new norms. It introduces them. Association does gradually desensitize our old tastes, gradually. Association does create a discomfort with my former enjoyments. I may still be addicted to it, but now I'm uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that I'm addicted. I'm still addicted, but I'm not comfortable with my addiction. That's what association does. Association awakens a sense that this other way is possible. He can do it. I can do it too. It creates a sense of hope. And that awakening alone is a miracle. That's why it says, Lavamatra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. That's that. When it says one moment, that's what we're talking about. It makes you see that it's the art of the possible. You see? So that's the whole point of association. That's why the crow can gradually become a swan, but if you try to do it overnight, you're like, that's not possible. It is not possible. We have to be realistic about it. But we have to understand how the pathway of association works and then go about it that way. Does that help, Bhima Prabhu? I know Sadhvi Mataji had a follow-up question, so we can go.
I feel like a black swan then. I am a black swan.
Yes.
I don't have to change my colors.
You don't have to change your colors, you know. You just have to change your taste. That's all. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Sadhvi Devi Dasi, please go ahead. You had a follow-up. I want to come back to that.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. When we talk about Krishna consciousness with others, it's like preaching, right? Is it right to preach when I myself still have some question that I really don't know about it, that I don't really know the answer? Is it right for me then to preach still? Because I distribute books sometimes, and when I distribute book, I say the way which I always say, I got many of my answer here from this, but I don't go and give it too much. You know what I mean? So I give it very easy. I got many of my question answered here. So it might help you too, but not more. You know what I mean?
That's
but if I talk too much, then it will be preaching. Is it right to preach?
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. What you're doing is absolutely perfect. Because, see, when we're going out to do what we call preaching or say sharing, nowadays the word preaching, some people don't like the word. So it's just sharing or sharing what we've learned. Why do we share? We share something that we discovered. And that's the perfect way you're doing it. You go on big distribution, tell them, this has really helped me. I'm a student. Student means I'm still learning. But I've learned quite a bit. But I've learned this much, and I have so much more to learn. But even this much has helped my life so much. Like it's transformed me. And I want to invite you to try it out yourself. Please take one. I think it's very helpful if you do it. I think you will really enjoy it. I think there's something in there for everyone. It's not, it only applies to certain groups of people. I think it's universal. We should never refrain from we should not hold back from our preaching efforts, our sharing efforts, even in the beginning. Sometimes some people think, oh, I'm not so knowledgeable, I'm not so expert, maybe I shouldn't go out. What if I say something wrong? What if I misrepresent the philosophy? That's why it's important for us to only say what we know clearly and share what we've understood, and especially share how it has affected our lives personally. Those are the most powerful things. Like I know whenever I used to read Back to God magazine to get since the 90s, I would always jump to that section called How I Came to Krishna Consciousness. There's a section that talks about their pathway of how they became devotees. I found that the most fascinating. And I saw it as such a different variety of devotees come to Krishna from different background, different experiences. So this is amazing. So that's why when we share how we came to Krishna or why we like it or why it's beneficial for us, it's the most powerful testimony, because nobody can say it's not true, because it is true and because you're convinced of it because it happened to you. So we don't want to hold back just because we're beginners. And we should keep the mindset that I'm always a beginner. I'm not, no matter how many years I've been doing it, in one sense we're beginners. So we keep that mindset that keeps us humble, keeps us clear, and keeps us more trustworthy. Then when you talk with somebody, they can sense your level of trust. They can sense that you actually are speaking your heart and you really understand or convinced that this is great stuff. And that really, it impresses people. It's really good, So that's how we want to approach it. We don't want to pretend something we're not. I'll tell you my story. If you have a minute, I'll tell you my story. One story. When I was 14 years old, I discovered Krishna consciousness. It's only been like maybe 6 months. And I would chant in my high school. I had a blazer, we had to wear blazer and uniform. I had my beads in my blazer pocket, and I would just chant at break time, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I would sit in the corner and chant. And one of my friends, he came up to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I showed him the beads. I said, "This is Hare Krishna. I chant. I find a lot of peace in it. I've been reading Bhagavad Gita. It's awesome." And he said, "Wow, that's amazing. I want to try it too." So then he got his own beads, and we would sit together and chant. And he became quite a good devotee, right? And I realized, wow, this devotee. I mean, I'm not an expert. I just shared what I liked, and he became a devotee. Now I came to America a couple of years later, and we lost touch. This was before internet, right? In the 90s, early 90s. So then we lost touch. We didn't have Facebook or anything. And then, like after 3 or 4 years, I got a letter from his father. Now, his father didn't know me. I'd never met his father. But somehow he found out my address in America, and he wrote this long letter. And he says, "I'm the father of your friend, Jewel. And I write this with a very heavy heart that he passed away. He got shot and killed. And, he got carjacked. His car got stolen. He was with his friends, and they got beaten up. But I'm writing this to thank you for giving my son Hare Krishna. Because in his dying breaths, he was shouting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." And my heart was like, wow. I didn't even sleep for that whole night. I was just heartbroken, my dear friend, And the other friends who were with him, they testified. That's how his father knew that he was chanting Hare Krishna. So it just completely shattered my heart. But then I realized, had I not preached to him, had I not shared with him earlier on, we don't know where he would be. It's not to my credit. It's Prabhupada's magic. It's Prabhupada's books. It's Prabhupada's, gift. But I'm just happy that I didn't wait until I'm expert to share. We should not wait until we're experts. We should not hold back in opportunities to give Krishna to others just because we're beginners. So that's my story. And that's why I always encourage devotees, even if you've just been coming for 2 months, if you like something about Krishna consciousness, give a book to somebody. Tell them it transformed your life. And tell them you're still beginning. But tell them you love it. And tell them that you will find something valuable in there too. And this is what pleases Krishna. Jare dekho tare kaho Krishna upadesh. Amara agya guru haya tare desh. You become guru. In other words, just give Krishna to others. It makes you guru. Don't get weird about it. Don't paralyze yourself. Just give Krishna. So I want to share, this is something very dear to me in my heart, but I wanted to make a point, Sadhu Devidasi. So Hare Krishna.
Well, so many great questions and so many great answers. Thank you so much for making our life so rich, Madana-gopāla Prabhu.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to joining all of you again next month. Hare Krishna.
Sweet. Thank you very much. We're turning the floor over to Sage and Sky, Annabelle and Isaiah. We want them to chant Hare Krishna as loud as you can. Who's that, Sage? Who's that? Paw Patrol. Right.
Of course. And Sky says sharing's caring.
Sweet. That's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay, junior choir, let's do it. Unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you, Annabelle, Isaiah, Sage, and Sky, for not waiting till you grow up to become adults. Thank you for chanting here and now. Thank you. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Morning program ki jai. Happy Monday, everybody. Thank you very much, Madana-gopāla Prabhu. We're bound down to you. Thank you. Thank you.
Obeisances. Haribol. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Bye.